Welcome back to Kevin Pollak's Chat Show. Nope. Not Chat Show. It's me, Samm Levine. Look, I'm getting tired of hearing my own voice too, okay? I'm wearing headphones right now, so it's like pumping into my own ears. So I don't blame you if you're like, ugh, again. Come on, I want Christopher Walken to host these shows. I want that too, but he's very busy, guys. He's got Marvelous Mrs. Maisling to do. He's got Bruce Willis roasting to do. He's got money from Amazon to count. So you got me instead. Deal with it. But the good news is it's not just me. There is someone in the room with me, and the call is coming from inside the house. I am so excited to have my guest here today. He is a friend. He is a former coworker. He is one of the funniest people I'm proud to say I know. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Baron Vaughn.
Hello, nurse.
There you go.
Thank you for that introduction that I do not deserve.
Yes, you do. It's so nice to have you, man. Thanks for coming by.
Hey, I'm happy to be here. We're going to talk about stuff.
We are going to talk about some stuff.
Mostly me, my least favorite subject.
Oh, that's okay. We could talk about Kevin if you want.
Hey.
You know.
There you go.
We can talk about anything, really.
No,
it doesn't have to be about you.
I'm trying to, I'm working on recognizing my own achievements. So that's...
Attaboy.
This is a piece of my self-work, you could say.
Okay. I mean, we're going to jump around here. It's not a secret that we're going to talk about Grace and Frankie, but your Grace and Frankie co-star, Mr. Ethan Embry,
yes.
When I had him on the show a year or so ago, he too is of the same... Oh, I don't want to sit here and talk about myself. And I made him do it for like 90 plus minutes. And afterward, it looked like he'd been in a fight.
Well, hopefully I won't be that extreme.
No, but I mean, it was a fight he won.
Oh, okay.
If it makes you feel any better.
It was a fight with you, though, right?
It was a fight with me. We sparred a little bit. But he was great. And I expect you to be just as great because it's a great show, that Grace and Frankie. But we're not going to talk about that now.
Yet.
No, we're not going to talk about that yet. Because you didn't just wake up one day and go, I'm Baron Vaughn. I'd like to be on Grace and Frankie with a couple of living legends.
That's true.
You woke up one day and said, I'm Baron Vaughn, and I want to be Wise Man number 3 in my church play.
Yeah. Good pull. Good pull on that one.
Thank you. I do a little homework here.
Just a little bit. Yeah, I mean, I was born in a very small town in New Mexico called Portales.
Ooh.
And then we said, not small enough.
Wow.
Moved to a smaller town called Tucumcari, New Mexico.
What are we talking in population size here?
And today it's 5,000.
Back then?
Back then, I can't even imagine. Back then, I would assume 2,000-3,000.
Holy.
At best.
That's like a kibbutz. That's not a town.
A little bit. I've never met anyone that's from a town that is a 3-digit population. So 4 digits is going to do it. You know? And it doesn't feel like there's that many people there.
No.
When you're there. But yeah, it was a very small town and a very tight-knit community. Route 66 drives right through Tucumcari.
Okay.
So for the road trip lovers, the people who are like, I'm going to see these states that take Route 66, you may have driven through Tucumcari, New Mexico.
I have not.
It's a place.
It's a place on a map.
On a map. It's one of these cities I would call a forgotten American city in a lot of different ways.
Okay.
But that's where I kind of started, and we had this little church community that, of course, you got to put on your nativity plays when you are a little church in a little town.
Yeah.
So I got cast as Wise Man number 3.
How old are you in this story, by the way?
I have to be 5.
Okay.
5 or 6 at oldest.
Okay. So this is really the beginnings of...
Yes, of me wanting to... Because by this time... The most important thing in my life at this time was probably cartoons.
Naturally.
And Nick at Night.
It's weird that that's changed.
Exactly. Nick at Night is now its own channel called TV Land, right?
It's true.
But back in the day, if you had Nickelodeon, after a certain time...
And your parents let you stay up late enough.
That's right. After a certain time, it switched to Nick at Night, which was... reruns of classic black and white sitcoms.
Mr. Ed, I Love Lucy.
Exactly. Mr. Ed, Patty Duke.
Where are you?
Yeah, Patty Duke, Dobie Gillis.
Yeah.
Make Room for Daddy.
Ooh.
Father Knows Best.
Ooh, My Three Sons.
Definitely My Three Sons.
Definitely.
And of course, Leave It to Beaver. Oh. And so I was watching that at night.
Great.
But during the day, nonstop cartoons.
So you just had Nickelodeon, is what it sounds like.
Basically, yeah. Nickelodeon was probably my lifeblood at that time. So because of watching all of that, the bug of kind of wanting to perform or wanting to be seen or at least wanting to be funny.
Yep. As Kevin likes to put it, hey, look at me disease.
The hey, look at me disease. That's a good way of putting it.
All the kids have it.
I definitely had it, and this play, if you will, was my first opportunity to express that. And of course, I had no lines. So,
right, which is bullshit.
Which is bull to the shit.
You don't try to contain this kind of raw talent.
Definitely
even
not.
at 5.
But I had that feeling of watching Wise Man Number 1 talk for all of us for some reason. That's not wise. We let him talk for all of us. And I was just like, I could do that better. And that's how I knew I wanted to be an actor.
Right there.
That feeling of I could do that better. I could sound realer is sort of the beginning of it.
I'll help you out. I'll tell a quick story about me.
Okay.
I have a very similar story with how my brain made the decision to never have stage fright. I was asked to be in an elementary school production. I think it was 5th grade. I think it was 10. An elementary school production of Christmas Carol. And the music teacher wanted me to play Marley.
Ooh.
Who's the former business associate of Scrooge,
back,
right? Who haunts him as a ghost. And I was like, no, it's too much dialogue, it's too many words. I'm too scared. I'll screw it up.
Really?
I don't know. I'm not good enough. She's like, okay, I think you'd be great, but what would you like to do instead? I was like, just put me in the chorus. I want to with a big group on the side where I can blend in. That'll be fine. And so then we didn't have like any real proper rehearsals with all of us until the dress rehearsal. And so at the dress rehearsal is the first time I got to see the other kid who actually was playing
Marley.
And look, with all due respect, it could get back to him. I'm sure he's a fine adult. I'm sure he's done very well for himself in his life and is happy.
Yes.
But at that moment, he was just dreadful.
Oh, my
And
goodness.
I remember standing in the chorus watching that going, well, I didn't know he was allowed to be that bad. Gee, I could have done that.
If I would have known.
Why didn't you tell me ahead of time I could, shit the bed over there?
Well, it's a good lesson in just putting yourself out there, right?
Yeah. And so the very next year's production, we're doing the Nutcracker, and the teacher was like, oh, well, Sam, I don't know. If you got over your stage fright, do you want to be the Nutcracker? Yes, I want to be the Nutcracker.
So you were aware what stage fright even was, though, in some sort of way.
Yeah, I guess so. Oh, wow, that's you just turned the tables on me. Yeah, I guess I was. Baron, I was aware of what stage fright was.
Stage fright is kind of a sophisticated concept for somebody who was your age.
I don't know. Maybe I'm putting too adult words to it too much, but I was scared. I was scared of standing on a stage and performing in front of a bunch of people.
So you were aware that you were scared?
I guess so. I mean, just even thinking about it ahead of time, yes, it made me afraid, but not you.
Me?
Yeah, turning it back around, homie. No, you can't do this to me. But not you. You as Wise Man number 3, you never had a moment of stage fright. You were like, why can't I be Wise Man number 1?
Yeah.
Why does he have all the lines? I'd like some lines. I want to perform.
I was, also it's just that like the church is, or at least was, sort of my first witnessing of live performance, you could say.
I have heard a lot of stories like that. First live performance, first time singing in front of a crowd.
Yes, I was in the youth choir, if you will, but also just my preacher, if you will, my minister, was a comedian. As far as I was concerned, he was on a stage in front of an audience saying things. His material was always the Bible, but at least he could make it compelling and interesting, and people laughed. And I'm like, he's talking, they're laughing. How do I do that? And so that was my model, if you will. So being on stage at the church was sort of my dream in a kind of a way.
Sure.
But I wasn't talking, so I was like, gotta fix this. I think by the next year, I just decided to sit the play out.
Oh no!
But because I don't remember. I mean, I don't remember being like, next time, Wise Man number 1. I don't. Next time I'm gonna be, whoever.
I'm
Jesus'
assuming
dad.
I'm assuming Jesus Christ Superstar.
You know what? Jesus Christ Superstar, I had a love affair with that musical in high school.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the worst musicals ever written. It's really not good. But at the same time, there's something so glorious about it.
And yet.
We
still talk about it today.
It's a middling musical.
Right. Can we...
With a paper-thin metaphor of Jesus is a rock star.
Boy. If it were like... Phil from Accounting rock star or superstar.
I would watch that.
Instead of Jesus, I don't know that it would be as beloved so many years later.
That's true. I mean, no offense to Andrew Lloyd Webber. No, he's listening. Sir Andrew Lloyd Webber. Yep. He kind of seems like a two-bit songwriter that ended up in musicals.
Wow. Do you know what fixes Jesus Christ Superstar?
What's that?
A comma.
In what way?
Jesus Christ! Superstar.
Then we get Molly Shannon and everything everything is solved.
We get Molly Shannon, we get Will Ferrell.
Yeah.
Done.
It really is a musical that it depends on the performances of the people in it. Yeah. People don't even know who wrote the damn thing, but you can remember who's been in it and who did really well at it, and especially that movie. But it's for some reason, for a long time, the singing role of Judas was my litmus test for myself about whether or not I could or could not sing.
Wow.
Because that is not an easy part to sing.
No, I guess it is not.
And Carl Anderson, may he rest in peace, who was Judas in the movie, also on Broadway, but followed Ben Vereen.
Ooh.
Ben Vereen was the original Broadway Judas.
Big shoes.
People don't know this.
Big shoes to follow.
I recently tracked down an LP of the Broadway cast recording. Not good.
Wow.
Not good.
Okay.
Can't get it. Not easy to get.
Not easy to find.
But bad recording. But anyway, that role is hard to sing, and that was my litmus test for a really long time. So I don't know. Church again.
No, it's that's for me. It started at Jewish sleepaway camp. So
sleepaway camp.
Yeah, a Jew camp, but not that kind.
Okay. Was definitely not one of the first kinds I was thinking of.
No. So everybody's got their own version of
an origin story.
Of an origin story where there's a safe place given to you to perform and realize that that's something that you're either comfortable with and want to keep doing or is terrifying and holds no appeal to you.
And I guess the open mic for my performance.
Yeah.
Me being a performer after this was...
That's my next question. You beat me to it.
Uh-oh.
You're so good. It's like you can read my mind.
Hey, what's your next question, Sam?
After the musical, after Wise Man number 3, where did you realize that you wanted to be a performer in the more solo sense?
Whoa, caught me off guard. Was not expecting this.
I had it written down pretty much exactly like that.
Well, I kind of look at it in this, as a 30-something, a late 30-something. I'm sort of looking at my childhood a lot more, right? So I've been thinking a lot about all these formative experiences and, revising them, I guess you could say. Like you didn't, maybe at the age you didn't know it was stage fright, but now you can look back and be like, oh my goodness, I was afraid of getting on stage. That's stage fright.
Yeah.
And so you can say that. My grandmother was very, very concerned about education. She was always obsessed with education, speaking well, being able to read. So she taught me to write cursive when I was very young. I was a kindergarten and I knew how to write cursive.
Wow, that is young.
Very young, but it made me love the fact that I knew something that not all the other kids knew, that I could write in this secret language, and it made me obsessed with words and reading. And so in third, fourth grade, I had like a 9th, 10th grade reading level.
Wow.
So I had different vocab words than the other classmates, right?
Yeah.
More syllables.
Yeah.
Words like syllables.
I can drop 5-syllable words on you kids.
I'm gregarious today.
All day long.
But what that was born of as well is being able to read off the page without making mistakes. So when there was the class where we're reading a book or reading some sort of passage.
Right.
Everybody was supposed to take turns reading a paragraph. When it was my turn, I could read right off the page, making no mistakes.
Yeah.
Being able to kind of give it some feeling, if you will.
Yep.
Do voices. And I'm doing this in front of the class, making people laugh. Ugh. And sometimes the teacher, if she was frustrated it was just like, Baron, you read. She doesn't want to hear any other kids read anymore.
Wow.
She's like, all right, everyone's taking forever. Baron, here you just read the rest of the thing. And then I would just have my spotlight, if you will. And so that kind of gave me the feeling of, I guess you could say, what I now understand was the feeling of stand-up that I was chasing.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I'm talking, everyone's listening. I can get laughs.
Right.
It sort of started those wheels turning in my head.
Right.
And this was probably, I want to say, 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade was when this was happening.
That's tremendous. The way I remember thinking it before I too got into stand-up at that age, my brain rationalized it like this, in literally the most arrogant, egotistical possible way for an 11-year-old brain.
Okay.
Oh, I love stand-up. It's like the best part of a conversation when I'm talking.
I talk, they listen.
I talk and they all listen.
My voice magnified, they kicked out.
I don't have to pause my thoughts to let someone else have thoughts.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
That was also what was intimidating to me about stand-up. Yeah. Because even Nickelodeon, when, if you will, Network, which people don't remember.
That's right.
And the Comedy Channel started, I was watching. I was there. Because there were some personalities that were on Nickelodeon, I think, because it's a Viacom network, that ended up being there. So that's when I was watching Dr. Katz. That's when I was watching Short Attention Span Theater and Wienerville and all these kind of early comedy, and Mystery Science Theater 3000, of course. All these early Comedy Central shows. And of course, I was aware when they combined in the Comedy Central, but that was sort of me seeing stand-up for the first time, really. Because I had seen some late night sets, like some of the stuff like Carson or whatever, but I wasn't as aware of it because, there wasn't video, VCRs and stuff yet, so you couldn't tape things. So if you missed someone's...
Wait a minute.
What
year are we talking about?
I mean, there... maybe VCRs, but don't forget that I was in New Mexico, okay?
All right, look.
We didn't get VCRs until 2 years ago. They are just getting into Laserdisc right now.
I'm just saying, it's fine if you didn't own a VCR. If your family was like, no, we catch it live or we see it on a rerun, that's fine.
Well, in my childhood in New Mexico, I was raised by my great-grandparents as well. Oh. So these are old-school Southern Baptist black people from the South. So it was sort of like we had a TV, they watched it.
Sure,
but
rabbit ears.
It wasn't on all the time. I was the only one who was always watching TV.
Naturally.
They were my great-grandmother literally grew food in her garden. She's like, if I'm going to cook tonight, I better go till the land.
I have to go. I must nurture the earth so that we may eat later.
Basically. So it's like they were focused on all that stuff. We lived on church land, I now know.
Wow.
My great-grandfather was the deacon at the church. So we lived next door to the preacher. And his children, which I now understand were not his biological children. Oh. Back then, I just, didn't know. They were different races and different stuff like that. I'm like, all right, well, they have a white daughter. That's just how it is. Sometimes you have white daughters.
Yeah.
But it was always like a quote unquote what would be called at-risk youth now that they were constantly taking in. They opened their doors to all these children in the in the city, if you will, who they adopted as their own children. Yeah. And those were my friends as well.
Yeah.
But now I realize that I was kind of in a similar situation because my mom wasn't there. Mm-hmm. It was my great-grandparents and me. Wow. So it was like, oh, I'm an at-risk youth. Now I see that like, oh yeah, my mom was young. She was in college. There's a whole situation that we'll probably get into.
Sure, if you'd like.
But it is, the fact of the matter is that like, because we were so ingrained in this community, they were always doing things. They were always out there in the streets, if you will, talking to neighbors, tilling the land. And I was inside watching all the television ever.
That's great.
But not Carson, because it was on late.
Too late.
So when Comedy Central started, I was watching stuff like Short Attention Span Theater. Mm-hmm. I remember the A-List.
Oh, yeah.
The A-List was a big one.
That was one of their first big weekly stand-up showcases. Yeah. Where it wasn't an hour-long special or half hour. It was like 5 or 6 different comics who were all going to do probably 5 to 6 minutes, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, the sets were varied. It was still not a lot of commercials on at that time. So they needed material. They needed content.
Yeah.
And so I would see, and now I look back at it and I'm seeing, I realize I saw like everybody. I realized I saw everybody on that show.
And they'd always bring in someone to host.
Yeah.
I remember one of the last times I saw John Candy do anything other than a movie was he hosted the A-List.
Whoa. Wow. I don't remember that.
Yeah.
I remember Sandra Bernhardt being a host.
Sure.
And that's as much as I could remember.
Okay.
There was another host, and I can't remember. I want to say it was Marin, but I don't think it was.
Okay.
At the same time. Because he had that other show.
Right.
But like I saw I saw everybody on that. I want to say Martin Lawrence was on that show. I want to say I saw Bob Odenkirk.
Yeah.
I saw Marin. I saw Hicks.
Yeah.
Margaret Cho. Just all these different comedians that I feel like I saw Jake Johansson and Ellen and just everybody was on this show.
Well, it was the early 90s.
It was the early 90s and everybody was living in LA doing spots.
We were still in the boom of stand-up. It had not the bubble had not burst yet.
Yeah, historically, like I look back at that now and I'm like, where does that belong in kind of the if you will, the nexus and history of comedy? So we had this comedy club boom, but now there was a channel that was dedicated to comedy.
Yep.
And I guess that was the sort of the peak, if you will.
Yeah, that's if there weren't a comedy club in your city to begin with, once you could see 30 different comedians telling jokes on TV every day.
Yes.
There was going to be a club in your city.
Definitely. Or at least some place that was going to put on a comedy show.
Yep. And so that's when I would say that was the peak. Like 93, 94 was probably when it hit critical mass. It was everywhere.
I wonder if there's an argument to be made that Friends was sort of the beginning of a new era in the sense that up until then, every stand-up seemed to be given a sitcom.
Yes.
Like if you had 6 funny minutes, it was like we could turn that into 6 funny seasons.
Yep.
And then at some point when I think that Friends was like, these are all actors. None of them were comedians, if you will. And it was kind of on the power of the writing and the performances a little bit more than it was on the personality of this person. But, this is just a theory.
No, it certainly bucked the trend because...
What the buck are you talking about?
Exactly. Well, no, I mean, I was thinking about a show like Cheers, and none of those actors were comedians, but that was not the brainchild of any comedians. That was, writers and stuff.
Yeah,
but if you think about all the other hit shows between Cheers and Friends...
Yeah.
Cosby Show, Seinfeld...
Yeah.
What's her face? Oh my God, Roseanne.
Roseanne, yeah.
Boy, wow! I just said 2 out of 3 buzz names in that list. But you get what I'm saying? Is like that may have been like the last. Here's may have been the last one, and then every big sitcom in between there, for better or worse, was centered around a sitcom act.
And it still went on. I mean, because it was like. Living Single is on Hulu. All of Living Single is on Hulu right now.
That Tim Allen, Tool Time?
Tool Time, Home Improvement.
Home Improvement, there you go.
With Richard Karn.
Sure.
Pamela Anderson at the beginning.
That famous stand-up.
Oh my goodness, that's right. Very, very hilarious comedian.
Yep.
But it went on. Like I was watching Living Single. It's all on Hulu, and there's a couple people who were stand-ups on that show. Kim Coles is the person I'm thinking of, who is one of the leads, and John Hinton. So they were stand-ups, but the show wasn't based around them. Right. It was kind of like a group of people, you know. Because I'm thinking, there's this guy, Ralph Lewis Harris. Do you remember this guy at all?
I do not.
It was just, I was talking about him last night, and he's still out there, I think, working the road, but he had a sitcom too. He used to do a lot of jokes about being a kid. It was almost like a post-Sinbad style, if you will, where it was like Sinbad sort of was, at that time, the apex of clean comedy, if you will. And like Martin was on the other side of the spectrum.
Right.
But of course, Martin got his own sitcom.
Yep.
And Sinbad, I think, had a sitcom. And then Ralph Lewis Harris got a sitcom. Mark Curry got a sitcom, Hanging with Mr. Cooper. And then, of course, Steve Harvey. So it was kind of like there were still stand-ups. And Ellen, there were still stand-ups that were doing sitcoms. And Margaret Cho. I remember All-American Girl as well. Yeah. But it was sort of not the, I guess, go-to form anymore. It wasn't at the height of success like a Cosby or a Seinfeld or a Roseanne.
Yeah.
But I forget what the point.
That's all right. Well, no, that's okay. Well, no, I mean, you and I could sit here and reminisce about
talking about theory.
80s, 90s.
I've got a query. And what is your theory?
Ooh.
I'm so weary. I'm high like Leary. Oh, I got a query tonight. A query, all right. Oh my God, Michael McDonald just came in here.
Michael McDonald is in the booth with us.
Riff, thanks a lot. He's gone.
And yeah,
that was quick.
Did he steal your sunglasses?
See you later. Oh my God, where'd he go?
Nope, he returned them.
Did take my sunglasses,
but he returned them.
Well, he's cool.
He's a gentleman.
Me thinking I could keep my sunglasses. That's what a fool believes.
Ah. See that? You see that? All right. So here's what I want to know.
Yeah.
So you are, to me, first and foremost, a stand-up.
Okay.
Is that how you view yourself?
I waffle.
Sure. You're a waffler.
I waffle and chicken. It's a thing that it's funny because I was I'm in a relationship and it's getting really serious.
Oh.
We've been together for 4 years. We have a 9-month-old child. And
Until
then
you said we have a 9-month-old child, I thought this was a bit.
It is a bit.
I thought it was. This is a bit.
Well, it's just that now that we have this child, I'm like, you know what? I can let you in on how I write jokes.
Wow.
That was the last step. It's like we have a baby. We've been together for multiple years, and maybe I'll take notes from you about my own act. That's intimacy.
Yeah.
101. So anyway, she told me last night that there's this one joke that I have where I announce that I'm a comedian and an actor.
Yes.
And she's like, she listened to a bunch of different recordings because I record on my own sets. And she was like, seems like you swallow the word actor a lot. Like you're ashamed of it.
Wow.
And I was like, what? She's like, yeah, you always kind of go, I'm a comedian. You say it, you announce that, and then you go, and an actor. Like you're ashamed of it. Like you feel like you're bragging or something.
Right.
And I'm like, no. Why would you say such things? I'm going to be in the bathroom. If you hear tears, that's pee.
Yep.
I'm out of here.
Long sustained urination.
God. I'll be out in a minute. So that just kind of, I did not think that I did that. It's an interesting thing to hear. But I kind of consider myself equal parts, if you will. I guess I consider myself a comedian first because my interest in acting was born from stand-up.
There you go.
But I got very serious about, if you will, what acting is when I was in high school. And it has to do with people assuming, when you are funny, if you will.
And I will.
Sometimes people assume that you're quote unquote always on.
Yes.
Or that everything that you say is a bit.
Yes.
Or they will castigate you for not being serious about something. And it's always the times when I am being serious and I am not on that people are like, can you take this seriously? I'm like, I'm literally just looking at you in the face listening to you.
Right.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Right.
So I got really, I don't know if it was paranoid or resentful of that kind of accusation. So I decided to be more serious when I was in high school. And I had the fortune of being at a performing arts high school. This is where I went to high school.
Oh, boy.
In Las Vegas, the Las Vegas Academy.
Hang on. How in the world did we get from living in a commune in New Mexico to high school, a high school for the performing arts in Las Vegas?
Long story short, driving. No, we moved to Vegas. I was probably 8 or 9.
Okay.
And my mom got out of college, and then she was 19 when she had me. So it's very controversial in some sort of ways. No marriage, sex outside of wedlock, very, very hard for my Southern Baptist great-grandparents.
I see the family tradition continues, by the way.
Oh, hey. Sometimes some cycles break, the other ones keep it driving.
I can't believe, frankly, I mock it because at this point, who gives a shit?
About which part?
About the marriage part. If you love the child and you will raise the child right, who needs the piece of paper in the ring?
It depends. It depends on what you think marriage is.
I guess.
So that's a whole different conversation.
That is a whole different conversation. I'm just saying the societal view on that, I wish would soften like it does on legal weed.
Well, hey, there's a lot of famous couples that aren't married and never were married.
Exactly.
But stayed together,
Like anything, if done responsibly.
Yes.
Go for it.
All things in moderation.
There you go.
That too.
All right. So anyway. Please.
Well, but for my, born in 1914 great-grandparents from the South, that was not a situation that they liked.
Right.
That my mom got herself into.
Okay.
And so, they raised me while my mom struggled to finish school. So it took her maybe 6 years because she was working multiple full-time jobs.
But she did it.
She did do it. She did
great.
do it. And we went to Portales recently, a couple years ago, actually. It's the first time I've been there that I remember as an adult. I didn't even remember the town. I was born in this city, don't remember it. Although when I was there, I was like, I do remember something. But I was like 2 the last time I was there.
Wow.
So there's things in my brain from 2 that I'm like, I remember this parking lot, like stuff like that. So it was interesting because a lot of the hardest things that happened to my mom happened in this town. And I was scared to bring her there. She was kind of scared to be there. But when we got there, it was sort of healing, for lack of a better word, in the sense that she was like, oh my goodness, I made it. Like, it was like, all this hard stuff happened here, yes, but it's over, is sort of what she felt. Where it's just kind of like, that stuff's done. Like, I did have good memories here too. I achieved a lot. I got a degree and I, did these things. And so she was able to see that and I was able to see that as well, which was pretty amazing. So it's like, oh, hey, things are okay. Hard things happen, but you can, get past them. So anyway, when she came and got me, I was probably 6. So she came and got me and then we lived in Tucumcari for another year.
Okay.
And then we moved to Vegas. And back then, it was random to me. Okay. But now I understand that my mom actually grew up in Vegas mostly. Oh. She went to high school in Vegas. My grandmother was already there. Ah. So it was like, it wasn't a random place. It was, my grandmother already was there. My mom already had a relationship with the city. And we moved there because it was, at the time especially, the fastest growing city in the United States.
Sure.
Also a very low cost of living.
Yeah, they got a lot of money there, so they don't do a lot of crazy taxes.
And they're always building stuff and hiring people. Yeah. So it was like easy to get a job.
Easy child labor.
And you got the child labor right there.
Right there.
Lifting boxes, playing with the tigers.
Yeah. Kid, let me see those hands. Can you handle a deck of cards?
Yes, but I got scratched by the tiger.
Oh, boy.
Well, don't bleed on them, okay?
Yeah, keep the blood off the felt, kid. So you're a little older. Yeah. High school.
Yeah.
Performing arts.
Yeah.
Whose choice was that? How did that come about?
My choice. I mean, by this time, I was middle school. I was already deeply entrenched into watching TV and watching comedy, watching movies.
And were you writing your own jokes?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Okay. I was co-opting jokes that I heard. Yep. And in the sense like where I was kind of, if you will, now I understand, studying them. Putting myself through some sort of graduate program or of comedy and being like, why do people laugh when this part happens and this part? Because, even then, like, I'm still young enough that I was thinking, like, everything that they say is made up. Like, these people have worked hard to become the most naturally funny person they could be. Right. And then they go on stage and they start talking and everyone laughs. How do I get to that point where everything I say is just funny?
So funny.
But I didn't understand, they write jokes and like it's a craft, if you will. I didn't understand it until I was in college. Mm-hmm. But so I kind of had studied all that stuff, and again, the reading in class. So I was integrating more of this stuff in that theatricality. And so probably about 8th grade, a group of friends and even some teachers in my middle school were like, "Hey, there's this new performing arts high school. Yeah, you should think about that." I was like, okay, I thought about it. Next, I don't. Why should I think about it? Like, no, you should apply. You have to apply to go, and you have to do a thing. I'm like, okay. So it just so happens, Baron, that our librarian is the wife of the principal of that high school. You should go talk to her about it.
What?
Exactly. So I went to the library and I talked to Mrs. Gary. Mm-hmm. Shout out Mrs. Gary, and she kind of talked me through the whole thing. She was like, oh, yeah, well, here's the application, and you have to do a monologue. And I'm like, stop. What is that? What is a monologue? Is it a disease that you get from a log? It's from a piece of wood.
Oh, poor child.
Yeah. She's like, no, here's a book. And so she gave me a book of monologues. and I like read them and I saw that these are speeches. Mm-hmm. And it made me, I picked a speech that resembled stand-up comedy the most to me. One that I thought was funny, one that I thought I could deliver as myself. It had it was a monologue that was specifically written for a 14-year-old.
Oh.
It wasn't from a play. Wow. It was a book of monologues for 12 to 14. Oh. And it's just speeches that somebody wrote.
Yeah.
And one of them was all about this, I specifically remember it. It was the dichotomy, if you will. That word wasn't ever said.
Okay.
But, at 13, 14, you're at an age where people are saying, hey, you're too old for that. But simultaneously saying, hey, you're too young for that.
Oh.
So that was sort of the crux of this monologue, was I'm stuck in this in between where I'm not old enough for certain things and I'm too young for other things. Yeah. Or I'm too old and too young for this and that, right? So it kind of read like a stand-up bit to me.
Right.
And that's why I picked that monologue to go audition for this performing arts high school. I put on the only dress pants I had at the time, which were too short.
Okay.
So you could see my shins.
Wow, the flood pants.
Yes, they were. I was flooding. Okay. And a silk shirt that I had.
Oh, baby.
Literally the only silk shirt.
Ooh.
Did I match? Yes. Oof. It was everything too tight. You know it. Yeah. Did I look ridiculous? Who knows? I got into the school. That's
damn right you did.
That's all I know. So I went and I auditioned, and the woman who I auditioned for laughed, which was the most important thing to me. She laughed at the end of the monologue. I was like, oh my goodness, that was like a stand-up bit.
Yeah.
Kind of got her to laugh right at that place. And this was the person who accepted my application for this.
Fantastic.
The Las Vegas Academy of International Studies Performing and Visual Arts, which is now just called the Las Vegas Academy.
You know what? Smart move.
Yeah, I feel
that's
like
a good move on their part.
Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic, but it did not end there.
No, it did not.
Because after that, you went to Boston University.
Yeah, so like I said, I got really serious about acting, if you will, or being serious in high school. So by this time, I was reading plays. I was reading theater.
Yep.
I had started reading Shakespeare because I was like, well, if I'm going to be an actor, I should probably understand what any of this is. Mm-hmm. And I should be able to do it without the help of a teacher explaining everything to me.
Yeah.
So let's get the dictionary and let's go to town. So I used to read plays in Shakespeare by myself, also watching stand-up. And then I discovered Theater of the Absurd. Do you know Theater of the Absurd?
Yeah.
So I was reading like Eugene Ionesco and Samuel Beckett, Harold Pinter, who is probably still my favorite playwright.
Wow.
Right? Okay. These are weird influences.
Yeah.
So I all that was still whirling around in my head. Then I was reading like, Raisin in the Sun, Lorraine Hansberry, and August Wilson, and all these other just things that were more current, if you will. Mm-hmm. Well, not that Lorraine Hansberry was still the 50s, but like August Wilson was alive, at the time when I was reading him. So sort of like I took all those things and decided my junior year that acting is a job, that people can become and will become famous, but most of the people who are actors are just people who are good that continue to work. And so in a sense, I had this idea that if I am just a solid actor, I will constantly work. It doesn't mean I'll become a celebrity, but it will mean that I'll be able to make it in some sort of way. And then when I went to college, to Boston University, which I auditioned for a buttload of theater schools because I understood that all of this is subjective. Like someone's going to think I'm good and someone else is going to think I suck.
Yeah.
So I got to diversify my applications, right? Okay. And my two best auditions were NYU and Boston University.
Wow.
NYU did not accept me.
Fools.
BU accepted me. I feel like I was on the wait list for DePaul in Chicago.
Oh.
And then there was Southern Methodist University in Dallas, Texas, which is a pretty good theater school.
I think you lucked out. You don't want to do a Chicago winter.
No, well, a Boston winter was no better.
No picnic, but trust me.
You think Chicago winter's worse than a Boston winter?
Way worse.
Uh-oh, we're going to get calls.
Way worse.
The lines are lighting up right now.
That wind coming off of Lake Michigan.
To Chicago. I've been to Chicago. I did a show in, was it South Bend, Indiana, where Notre Dame is.
Yeah.
Right next to Chicago. And because I live in California now, forgot the fact that it was February. So I was like, cool, yeah, I'll go to Indiana in February. And it was 2 feet of snow.
Yep.
I was like, oh, I didn't pack a coat like an idiot.
Oh my God.
Like a California
How
idiot.
did you survive?
I wore 2 hoodies.
I just imagine you wearing your luggage, your bags as coats.
Just a little bit. Just kind of like took my carry-ons and just zipped them around my arms.
That's exactly right.
Just looking like a transformer as I walked down the street.
So you're in Boston.
Yes.
You're in theater school. You are refining the craft. You are building onto the skills you learned in high school.
And this is shit that I am only now starting to understand what I learned in college.
Okay.
Because I was 18.
And you already knew everything.
No, I didn't know shit. That's what I'm saying.
Well, but you thought you did.
Hey, 18-year-old, this is a play. Tell us why Blanche Dubois is her way. Like, what? What am I supposed to know about life at this time?
Right.
So it's kind of like, in theater school is a fascinating social experiment, I'll tell you that much. And again, like I said, a lot of the wisdom of what I learned is starting to hit me in new ways where I'm like, oh, I get that now. Because it's the stakes of, quote unquote, doing it right are gone. Because in college, if you will, a theater school is filled with a bunch of people who were the best actors in high school.
Sure.
Some of them were the best actors in their class, and some of them were people who were overlooked, but were talented and got into a prestigious theater school.
Sure.
And were like, fuck everybody. I got shit to prove. But there's still this, if you will, tension of doing it right, getting an A at acting.
Yeah.
You can't get an A at acting. And trying to get an A negates the whole art form of acting.
I mean, I don't want to disagree with you, but Daniel Day-Lewis got an A in acting.
He did get an A. He did get an A.
Meryl Streep always had straight A's. Yeah. I mean, I hate to disagree. I really don't want to.
Hey, why are you so serious? Kind of, that's what Daniel Day got. He got a DDL.
That's right.
Well, but if we'll discuss their careers at length if we need to. Meryl's out in the hallway. She's waiting.
She's hanging out with Michael McDonald.
She is hanging out with Michael.
They have Monday brunch plans.
And she can sing, so it's not a surprise.
That's right.
If you get strep throat, but it's really good, that's streep throat.
Oh.
Hey, there's a pun for you.
Hi-oh.
I got strep throat so talented, I called it Meryl strep throat. Okay, and scene. Jordan's just shaking her head, just like, oh,
we
Gord.
got her to disapprove.
Oh, Gord.
Yep.
So what the heck was I talking about? Tangent.
You were talking about acting and the best people from their high school.
Yeah, so in theater school kind of breaks, it breaks you in the sense that I now understand that freshman year of theater school was all about trying to break us of these habits of doing it right.
Yeah.
Because in high school, a lot of people are like, if I speak clearly and then stand where I'm told I'm supposed to stand and remember where to go, that's acting.
Yeah.
But it's not about being in the moment. It's not about listening to your scene partner, and just trying to recreate actual behavior instead of waiting for your line.
Yes.
And so that's kind of what kids are doing.
Yeah.
And then they're very resistant to what it is that these teachers are offering us because we don't understand it because we're 18. We're 18. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like I said, I now look back and I'm like, oh, I get it. So it's sort of like that was, needless to say, the most important training I got was in there. And then also not taking myself so seriously that there is no correct way to act.
Sure.
Except for aspiring to be as honest and real and natural as you could possibly be.
That's the hope.
That's the best that everybody is trying to do,
So were you also pursuing stand-up?
Well, I went to my junior year. I went to England. So I had a friend, Leo Goodman. Shout out Leo Goodman.
Okay.
Long Island. Shout out Leo Goodman. Williamstown Theater Festival. You know the Williamstown Theater Festival?
I don't.
It's in western Massachusetts in a city called Williamstown where Williams College is.
All right.
And this is the Berkshires, so it's a very beautiful part of Massachusetts. There's also something called the Tanglewood Institute out there, which is for classical music. There's also a Shakespearean acting company that is out there. There's a lot of stuff that's going on in the summer in the Berkshires in Massachusetts. Williamstown Theater Festival is one of these things. I was fortunate enough to go to the Williamstown Theater Festival immediately after graduating Boston University.
Terrific.
But I was only aware of it because other students that were at BU, some older, some same age, were going to Williamstown for internships and doing things. So my friend Leo, who was a playwright, who was also interested in doing stand-up, went, and who is it that taught a stand-up comedy class in Williamstown every summer but Lewis Black, who went to Yale Drama. A lot of people did. Yale Drama for playwriting.
Yep.
And so he was connected with this theater community, and he would go and teach a class, do seminars and workshops for young people who wanted to become stand-ups.
Amazing.
So my friend Leo came back to college with all of these stories about what he learned from Lewis Black. And it was the first time that doing stand-up had been demystified, if you will.
Okay.
And it was as simple as Lewis Black saying, tell a story. Just think of a funny story you had, something that happened to you that was funny.
Yeah.
Set the scene and keep the funny parts to the end. And don't tell me you don't have a funny story. Are you alive? Then you have a funny story.
Yeah.
And that was sort of like one of the things that I got from Leo. And I'm like, oh, that's really simple. That kind of is like, oh, a funny story. I have funny stories, yeah. And then my sophomore, I'm going to say is the summer between my sophomore and junior year.
Okay.
Is the first time I went on stage in Boston.
Oh.
And so I stayed in Boston to work at this kind of summer theater institute they had for high school students. Again, I tried the TA classes and stuff over and over again to kind of relearn what I learned, where I was like, I don't get it. And then I saw it from the outside. I'm like, oh, now I get it. Now I see where they're blocked, where I was blocked, and I can see where I'm not. Oh. And so I decided I'm going to do that with high school students too. I wish I would have come to this thing, so now I'm going to be a counselor at it or whatever. But there was a month before and a month after that in the summer where I was just sitting in Boston, minding my own business, trying to figure out what I want to do. And then I found this open mic that I hit up. That I ended up doing more into my junior year of college. So that was 2001. That was the summer of 2001. So I am in the 17-year mark of doing stand-up comedy.
Wow.
From that time. And I remember it was 2001 because it was before 9/11.
Oh, you know what? I forgot. And I broke the rule.
Whoa, that's
never.
You
forget.
were never. Whoa,
never forget.
Michael, stay out the room. He's clamoring to get in.
I'm sorry.
He's clamoring to get in. Like,
I'm sorry.
I can't believe you forgot. Hey, Michael, it's okay. Get out of here.
Is it weird that I hear 2001 and I just think
Space Oddity? Space Oddity?
No, I think
what is Space Oddity? That's wrong.
I just think it's when Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes opened.
Oh my
That's
goodness!
what I think of 2001,
and that was pre 9/11 too, wasn't it?
I think that's what caused 9/11. They were very upset.
Oh
Some
my
film
goodness!
goers were very upset.
Did you see that makeup on Helena Bonham Carter? And
these are
incendiary,
awful, jokes.
Inflammatory remarks.
All right, now look, I could spend all day with you going over beat by beat the
extent,
the benefits of a classical education in the theater.
Yes,
but if we don't start talking about Mystery Science Theater 3000,
are we ever going to talk
Grace
about
and Frankie,
Yeah.
and your appearances on Law and Order, Baron, the people will have my neck.
I know, craft, blah blah blah.
Yeah, blah blah blah. And by the way, I don't know what I'm doing in my chair now, but
neither do I. But it is entertaining.
This is great.
I think it changes your voice.
This is so much more comfortable.
You sound more smoldering.
Thank you.
Scully and smolder.
Leaning. All right. So give me the 2-minute version of getting from Williamstown to, I'm going to presume you were living in New York at some point.
Yeah, no, I left Boston University. Again, these are things that I'm like, I have to remember these things that I achieved. I won this scholarship called the Esther Kahn Award. It was a $10,000 grant that they just give to me.
That is not a small amount of money to a college graduate.
No, it is not.
No.
But it was a stiff competition because you had to apply and then you had to basically do a performance and write an essay and all these things about how you knew you were going to get to a place. And they basically, based on, we think you're talented and we're giving you this money to help you start your career because you don't have any money.
Right.
And I am a rich woman who sees, so they gave me this award and I left BU and went to Williamstown right after that.
Okay.
And then ended up meeting a buttload of people that I still, I met Frankie Shaw there of Smilf fame. I met Chris Pine there. I met Catherine Waterston, Sam Waterston's daughter, who I'm now on a TV show with. And he's just like, oh my God, the man is so proud of his children.
Good.
So a lot of people that are out there doing things, out there working. And young playwrights. I remember meeting Teresa Rebeck. Well, she wasn't a young playwright, but she was someone who I thought was great. And then Kate Burton introduced me to Teresa Rebeck. I'm like, theater people, okay, cool. So I did Williamstown. I met this woman there named Nancy Piccioni, who was the casting director for the Manhattan Theater Club. Oh. So I had, the summer before, went into New York to visit a friend and saw a poster for the Manhattan Theater Club's season, in which they had a play called Drowning Crow, which was going to star Alfre Woodard, Boston University alum, and Anthony Mackie. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I wish I could be in that. And then so I meet this woman, Nancy Piccioni, who auditions me to be in that play. And I end up getting a bit part in this play, which is a Broadway play. Well, so this is my first job after school, is doing this Broadway play in New York.
You motherfucker.
See? Achievements, motherfucker.
Yep. No Foot Locker commercials for you.
To be honest, it's interesting because the Manhattan Theater Club they have a place called the Vanderbilt Theater. No, that's not right. It's not the Vanderbilt Theater.
Okay.
I forget. Biltmore. The Biltmore is what it's called.
All right.
It is their own Broadway theater because generally a Broadway theater is just a place for rent.
Right.
And if your show is still making money, you can be there for 15 years.
Yeah.
See Cats.
Yeah.
But they created their own theater. Exactly. They created their own theater, which now has a season. So then things leave.
Right.
So then the Drowning Crow always was going to end.
Right.
And then there was going to be another play there. So after 3-4 months of doing that, it was over. And there was no extension and no anything. That wasn't the point of this place. So then I was like, oh, now what? That was my first job. Yeah. So I got an agent out of that.
That's terrific.
And a commercial agent. Started auditioning for commercials until I booked a commercial. But that took a couple years while I simultaneously worked at a law firm that's the job that I got from a comic I knew from Boston that moved to New York, who's like, I'm leaving this job. Do you want this job? And I'm like, yes, I definitely need this job. Ugh. So I worked at this law firm for 2 years, but the person who was like my boss was a playwright. So he was totally like, yeah, I get it. You're going to go to auditions and stuff. Just as long as a certain amount of work gets done, you can come and go as you please. And I was like, dope.
That's pretty nice.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Then I booked a commercial. My first commercial was an AOL commercial. Remember that?
It's weird. I forgot 9/11, but I remember AOL.
Hey, you've got mail. And it was a commercial with a man named Owen Burke. Do you know who Owen Burke is?
Yes. Oh my God, yes.
Owen Burke I think he's the vice president of development at Gary Sanchez.
Yeah.
He's like one of the partners of Gary Sanchez.
Yeah.
At the time, he was the artistic director of the UCB in New York.
Yep.
And so my first commercial was with this man.
Unbelievable.
Us improvising.
Unbelievable.
And it took 6 months for it to air. So I was like,
I thought you were going to say it took 6 months for us to shoot. AOL
that
spent $90 million.
Insane. And then once that money started coming in, I quit my job. And then I was able to focus on auditioning for commercials. So for a couple years, doing commercials was my bread and butter, which also allowed me to focus more on stand-up. Perfect. And then which transitioned into stand-up, me doing colleges.
Ah.
So it was like 2003 to 2006. It was like commercials sustained me. And then I started doing colleges pretty actively until about 2009.
Terrific.
Just doing every college I could get.
But also between 2006 and 2009, you were on not one, not two, but 3 different episodes
of Law and Order.
Of the Law and Order worlds.
Yeah.
Now in 2006, you were on an episode of Law and Order: Criminal Intent.
Yes.
Where you played Amos.
Yes.
Yep.
a bartender in that front scene, you know, that beginning, that parable at the beginning of a Law and Order before you see our main characters, where we see a piece of action that is whatever crime that
leading
is about
up
to be.
to the
exactly.
crime, yeah.
So there was some girl whose midriff was out that was at this cool bar in Long Island City.
Oh boy.
And her boyfriend murders her. This is what happens in the episode.
Spoiler alert.
No, not necessarily.
Well.
So, of course, Catherine Irby and Vincent D'Onofrio, or as I like to call him, Vincent D'No, you didn't, Frio. Show up and they're like, who did you see? And I was the bartender.
Yeah. So as you're talking to them, as you're being interrogated by two police detectives about a murder, you're still cleaning the bar.
I am cleaning the bar.
Dishes.
Sam, have you seen the episode? You don't need to see the episode.
The problem
to
is,
know.
have you seen any episode?
And it was, look, and this was my first TV gig. So I had done commercials. But on a commercial, I am the main talent. So it was like I had never been a supporting, bit part where it was like literally no one said anything to me. And they were just like, you know what you're, okay, look, you're going to talk to them, clear all these dishes. And I'm like, okay.
Seems weird.
I'm like, all right. It's like, just keep moving. Just whatever you do, keep moving. I'm like, cool. And so I didn't get to think that much about what I was saying. I remembered the lines, but I was like so focused on not dropping glasses because I'm like, oh, if I drop a glass, it's gonna screw the shot. They're gonna have to be like, you drop a glass at Vincent's feet, get him off of the set, throw him in the ocean. How dare you, sir? So yeah, that was nerve-wracking. I remember telling them that my family watched Criminal Intent marathons for the last 3 years in a row for New Year's Eve.
Wow.
And they looked at me like I was an insane person. They were just kind of like, what? Like they were like, why are you talking to us? I was like, ooh, right, guest star. Hierarchy. Let me get comfortable. So I did the Criminal Intent, then I did Original Flavor.
That's right. You did 2 episodes as Medical Examiner Anskull.
That's right. Oh my goodness. So the first one was an audition.
Ooh, they made you audition after already having you on Criminal Intent.
Oh yeah, I auditioned, and it was because it was years later, and
it was only 2 years,
but it was years, multiple.
All right.
So in Williamstown,
they
did the Three Penny Opera, the Bertolt Brecht, Kurt Weill play with music, right?
Yeah.
And who played Mac the Knife? But Law and Order's own Jesse L. Martin, also of Rent.
Wow.
Who I ended up hanging out with a lot in Williamstown that year.
Very cool.
So when I showed up on Original Flavor, almost 5 years later, he was like, oh my God, I knew it. I knew you were going to end up somewhere. And I'm like, oh, cool. And he was the nicest person. The nicest person.
Happy to hear that.
And so I ended up doing that part, which was an episode that had a lot of comedians in it for some reason. I feel like Jim Gaffigan was in that episode as well. Michael Showalter was in that episode. There were a lot of comedians in that episode. I think Jim Gaffigan might have been the bad guy in that episode. I can't even remember. But the second time I played that same role, they just wrote it back in.
Wow.
So I didn't have to audition. They just wrote a thing, and they're like, oh, put this guy back in.
Perfect.
And so I was like, oh my goodness, they just wrote this role back in there, and I ended up going to get to do that. And Law & Order is the truest, at least at the time, the truest rite of passage for a New York actor. You did not matter or count unless you had done something on Law & Order.
Absolutely.
Because if you couldn't get on Law & Order, then what were you doing?
Because the show had been on for so long and there were so many different iterations of it. If you were an actor living in New York and couldn't get on Law & Order, that meant you were in the bottom of the 50,000 actors who had appeared on Law & Order.
The bottom of the rung.
Yeah.
And also
50,000 different actors appeared on Law & Order.
And also, like, so many good actors have been on Law & Order in 8 million different parts.
Yeah.
And I feel like they have some rule, too, about, like, there has to be a certain gap before they cast you again because they don't want people to recognize you.
And yet, I've seen compilations that people have put together on YouTube of the same supporting actors.
Doing 8 parts?
Doing 8 different parts across the Law & Order universes.
And it's just a cavalcade of haircuts.
A lot of wigs. A lot of facial hair changes.
Wigs and piercings, and suddenly there's a star tattoo on their cheek. Okay, whatever, Callista Flockhart.
That's probably my great regret is that I never really
got to do Law & Order?
I never lived in New York long enough to do a Law & Order or was famous enough to have them fly me out from LA
to come there and do one.
Well, Sam, I mean, it's called The Secret. All you got to do is envision, and then you will live it.
I already wasted it. I was using The Secret to get Michael McDonald here.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay. Get out of here, Michael.
Oh, no.
Oh, my goodness.
Power positive thought.
Yeah.
All right. So that's how you wind up on the Law and Orders.
Yeah.
With a couple of auditions and then a hey, we'd love to have you back again.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
And I met D'Onofrio and Jesse L. And I think the second time I was on it was Anthony Anderson and Jeremy Sisto.
Ah.
By that time.
That's great.
Yeah. First time it was Jesse and Jeremy, and then it was Anthony and Jeremy the second time. And Anthony Anderson was super cool too.
A story for another time when I'm not hosting. They shot a couple scenes for an episode of the Anthony Anderson, Jeremy Sisto Law and Order in my childhood home in New Jersey.
Whoa.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Dad. The long end of the short end of that story is my father was more proud that the house had been featured in Law and Order.
That's amazing.
Than I had ever done anything on camera.
My headphones fell off.
That's all right. You heard me, though. You heard me.
I heard everything.
All right. Anyway, so when did the move from the New York area to the Los Angeles area happen?
Well, I was very involved in the comedy scene in New York, especially the quote-unquote alt comedy scene. There weren't... I met Nick Kroll at an audition.
Wow.
Randomly, a commercial audition in which we had to improvise off each other.
What year?
It had to be 2004 or 5-ish.
Okay.
I can't remember. But we met, and at this time, Rafifi in the East Village was one of the hot spots.
Sure.
Doesn't exist anymore.
No.
Nick Kroll had a show there on Thursdays with Jesse Klein.
That's right.
Called Welcome to Our Week.
Yeah.
Then Jesse left. And then a young John Mulaney ended up being the co-host. And they called it Thursdays. Then they called it Oh Hello. And that became the beginning of the George St. Geeglin and Gil Faison, their characters that they did a special, in a Broadway run.
A Broadway run.
That was
ultimately.
The beginning. I saw those characters grow.
That's brilliant.
I saw Fabrice, grow. And
sure.
all these.
Oh yeah, I saw him do Fabrice in 2003, 4 here at UCB. Yeah.
Yeah, and so Nick and I met at the audition, and we played off each other. See, and I was going out for these commercial auditions, and I would meet all these comedians that I recognized. And they would be people who were, quote unquote, alt comics or club comics, but they started to get to know me. So when I started showing up at shows, they were like, oh, yeah, I met you. And Nick and I improvised off each other and were surprised that I was surprised he could follow me. He was surprised I could follow him. And then I was like, hey, don't you have a show? He's like, yeah, man, you should totally come out. And that was sort of the beginning of my foray into that whole scene.
Oh, wow.
There. And then I started doing shows in Brooklyn with a bunch of other people. This guy, Elon James White, who's out in San Francisco. Shout out, Elon. And we started our own kind of group we called the Brooklyn Comedy Company. And we had a couple different shows out in Brooklyn that we booked, like maybe 3 shows. And so it was like we were just always doing stand-up. And then I started doing colleges and just out of the city all the time, driving up and down each coast, trying to get to a random school in the mountains to do my hour of stand-up comedy that I was unsure how it would go. But then that kind of sustained me for a while until I started auditioning more. And that's when I booked my first pilot, which was 2009. It was called Canned, was the name of the pilot.
Ooh.
It was an ABC pilot. Manda Bynes.
Wow.
Myself. Wow. Nelson Franklin.
Uh-huh.
Stephanie Limelin.
Okay.
Tim Pepper.
Okay.
All these peeps, shout out. It was one of the most buzzed about pilots before it was made because we had just started the economic downturn. And it was one of the many shows that was kind of based people who suddenly don't have money.
Right. Was it ABC?
It was an ABC multicam. I think it was written to be a single cam, but they flipped it to a multicam.
And I can tell you off the top of my head, the show they picked up with a very similar theme instead of that one.
What was that?
It was called Hank, starring Kelsey Grammer.
Oh, well, never heard of that.
Where he played a wealthy executive who got the company closed or downsized or whatever, and he was fired and he had to start over again.
That's exactly what the premise of Canned was.
Yep.
Except it was a group of friends who were all like investment bankers that suddenly were fired on the same day and had to rethink what their life was. and that was that show. Yeah. And that was my first pilot that didn't take, obviously.
Well.
And then later in the same year, I auditioned for. I was still living in New York at that time.
Oh, okay.
So I came here to do that pilot. I auditioned for it in New York, and then I came here to do it, and then I went back to New York for the summer, and I got this call from my manager. Hey, Donald Glover is leaving 30 Rock. I'm like, what? They're like, yes, Donald's leaving 30 Rock, so they want to see a writing sample from you. I'm like, oh, because I guess he was leaving to go do Community.
Yeah.
But he was a writer on 30 Rock, sure. And I was like, cool. And I knew Donald from just around from like the UCB and I probably booked him on one of his first stand-up gigs.
Wow.
Because I had all these shows.
Sure.
And we had started becoming friends. I'm like, hey, you should come do stand-up. He's like, oh, I don't know. And I'm like, I think you'll be fine. I think you'll be fine.
Yeah.
And so I wrote this pilot that summer, which was not good.
Well.
Because I wrote it in 4 days.
I think you're being harsh on yourself.
And then ended up not getting that gig. And then booked this other show called Fairly Legal. I think it was called Facing Kate at the time. It was a USA show.
Okay.
At the height of the Characters Welcome sort of enterprise, the USA Blue Sky. Burn Notice was the flagship show.
Right.
Covert Affairs went on the same time as us. Suits was after us.
Oh, wow.
But we were in that time. The show didn't take for many reasons.
Okay.
But I ended up moving here, then going to Vancouver for multiple years to shoot that show. Never been to the Pacific Northwest in my life. Suddenly I'm in Vancouver.
Yeah.
And that's what that was.
That is what that was.
That is what that was.
Yeah, I've been.
Yeah.
It's what it was.
But what was it?
Cold.
Depends.
Misty.
I like the mist.
Misty.
I like the mist. It's also the fusion food capital of the world. Did you know that?
The Pacific Northwest?
No, Vancouver in specific.
Do you know what?
Vancouver in Pacific.
I didn't know that, but as soon as you say it, I'm like, now that I think about it, every restaurant I went to was like, this is Greek and Arabic. I was like, one of those isn't even a food.
That's a language.
You just said 2 languages. I mean, technically one of them's also a food, but anyway. No, it was always like Japanese mixed with Mexican.
Yeah.
I remember there's one restaurant there.
They definitely, they're definitely always putting things together.
Yeah,
some successful, some not so successful.
Okay. So then, wait. Let's talk about the Goliath here. Let's talk about Grace and Frankie.
Grace and Frankie.
When did that come about?
After Fairly Legal, which was 2 seasons, I was living in LA and was broke and had been robbed and was going to quit acting. I had hired a man as my business manager.
Oh, right.
Who stole 5 digits worth of money, and the first digit is a 7.
Oh, you got Billy Joel'd.
I got Billy Joel'd, and only the good die young.
Oh, man.
So I crashed into my own living room one day. I'm still on the Billy Joel. Okay.
Yep.
Doesn't matter. I'm still on the Billy Joel metaphor.
I think it was his living room.
Was that somebody else's living room?
Somebody else's living room.
That's why I said my own.
Okay. You're right. Sorry.
And then I started kind of, if you will, picking myself up. I had a bunch of friends who were writers over at the Funny or Die sketch department when they still kind of had more of like a pull in that internet space. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of ended up writing there for a couple of months. I was like, after I came out of the dark period, if you will, of just like not being employed, mm-hmm. wasn't booking anything, was kind of taking random gigs here and there,
sure.
working the road sporadically, trying to figure out like how can I afford to stay in Los Angeles? I don't think I can, right?
Yeah.
So then I was like, fuck it, I got to get myself together. I kind of hit a bottom when I came home, and there was a summons on my door from Boston University, who was suing me for a student loan. Oh. And they had already taken me to court in Boston where I don't live. Uh-huh. And since I didn't show up, I owed them twice as much as I owed for that student loan.
This seems illegal.
It seems it, but it wasn't.
Oh.
And at that time, there were maybe 16 or 15.
Thanks a lot, Obama.
Uh-oh.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. I just can't believe you would let that happen.
You can't believe Obama would let that happen specifically to me. Oh, my God. This is what everyone's talking about. Now I get it.
Now I see why they're upset with me.
So I was like, I don't have this money. How am I going to do this? So I kind of hit a bottom and then started figuring out how to get out there. So I got this job writing at Fairly Legal at Funny or Die. Mm-hmm. And then I was booking clubs, and there was like the first time in like years that I had 6 months of solid employment. Like, ooh, I know what I'm doing until the end of the year. And then in the middle of that, Grace and Frankie, the audition for Grace and Frankie came up. I was already talking to a different production company as a writer about writing something that was about a blended family and this mother who had adopted these children, and they were trying to figure out this identity stuff.
Yeah.
And then they saw this notice for Grace and Frankie that this woman has 2 adopted sons.
Yep.
And they're like, oh, that might be the same thing. It wasn't the same thing, but it was similar enough on the breakdown that they were like, oh, we got to stop making our show. Clearly someone else is already doing that. And I was like, oh, all right. And then I was not expecting to audition for Grace and Frankie. And then I ended up auditioning for it multiple times and ended up booking it. And that it literally saved my life. Just saved. Oof. It changed and saved. Because I was going to quit, Sam.
Acting or the arts altogether?
Both, yes.
You were going to give up stand-up.
I was going
But you're such a great stand-up.
I was going to not be, I was like, I'm leaving L.A. I'm not going back to New York. So I'm not going to be in LA or New York. And I was trying to figure out what is a good city where I could maybe still act and still do comedy and eke out a living not having to deal with New York or Los Angeles. That's what I was trying to figure out before everything kind of started to happen again.
Paris, Texas.
Paris, Texas. Yes, exactly. That's Memphis, Egypt. That's where you go. So that's why Grace and Frankie kind of saved my life. Wow. I was not expecting to book it. Yeah. Which is probably why I had a good audition, because I had started to realize that I was, as the kids say today, too thirsty in a lot of my auditions. Like if you go in there with smelling of the desperation of the need for the job.
Desperation is a stinky cologne.
It gets in the way of you being able to actually just act.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking so hard about getting an A at auditioning.
Yep.
That I couldn't just do it. And so I started to let go of that.
Yeah.
I did not think I was going to book Grace and Frankie, which is probably why I was able to be present.
Always.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That was the same with Fairly Legal. Like I was like, man, I walked out of there being like, well, that stunk. I stunk up that audition.
Yeah.
And my agent's like, they loved you. I'm like, what are you talking about? I didn't do anything in there. And that's what they liked, is that I was just there. You know what I mean? Just being a person saying lines. So speaking truth to power and shit.
You did it. But now you guys are 4 seasons deep on that.
Yeah, we just wrapped the 5th season.
Okay, that was my next question.
Yeah.
So I know they had been picked up for a 5th.
Yes.
And you guys are done shooting in the can, as they say.
Yeah.
Any idea on a release date on that?
No idea.
Okay.
Netflix plays all information close to the vest. They know. They just don't want anyone else to know.
Right.
Because they still have that tech company mystique about them.
Sure.
Which is frustrating because it's impossible to plan your life around them not wanting anyone to know anything.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Sorry. Well, that's just Netflix truth.
Okay. I understand. Look, that's the way they got to do it.
It is the way they do it.
So I could not, by the way, for the life of me, I know your character's known as Bud.
Yeah.
But his full name.
Nwabudike.
That's how it's said, folks.
Yes. Very common name up and down the African continent. I believe it's Nigerian.
Nwabudike Bergstein.
Yes. They call him Bud for short.
Bud for short.
So
the son of Frankie and Saul, which is Lily Tomlin and Sam Waterston.
Yes. Now, when I booked this gig, I mean, Lily Tomlin is a personal hero.
Sure.
I watched The Search for Signs of Intelligent Life, or The Search, as Lily calls it for short.
Okay.
That's The Search. Like, if I ever quoted anything from it, she's like, that's The Search. Like, she's surprised I know what it is. This woman has no ego.
Yeah.
She's never like, oh, you've heard of me. Like, she's like, but you're young and hip and cool. I'm like, yeah, you're Lily Tomlin. You're still relevant, you know? Yeah. So she is a dream to work with. And it's what I really like about the set, about being on the set is, yes, we got Lily Tomlin, we got Jane Fonda, Martin Sheen, Sam Waterston. These are legends who have achieved literally been in every single part of this industry. You know, they've been everywhere, and they still know how to play. When it comes down to it, it's still about playing on set. It's still about talking with each other, and it's still about having fun. So that's the best thing about this experience, is that I get to see what it's like to be a person that continues to have fun for their whole career.
That's tremendous.
And that's the biggest thing I've learned. Continue the sense of play is the only thing that's ever going to serve you.
You answered my question, which is what is the best lesson you've learned from these greats? And it's never stop playing.
It's also that they talk to each other.
Yeah.
Because they were on sets before cell phones.
Huh.
So they still have a rhythm of like, when I'm sitting in this seat between scenes, I talk to the person next to me.
Yeah.
And see what they're about and what they think.
Yeah.
And that's kind of cool too, just to kind of get a reminder on how to communicate with people.
Yeah.
Like we're doing right now, Sam.
Like we're doing
we right now.
Boy, we are, aren't we?
Like we doing right now.
Connecting. Well, that's beautiful, man, and congratulations on season 5.
Thank you very much.
I've seen many episodes of that show. It is so sweet and funny. And the acting is top notch. And I wanted to make a note. And you mentioned Michael Showalter.
Yes.
Earlier.
Yes.
That you guys were doing that thing, and then years later, of course, he would direct an episode.
He directed a couple episodes.
A couple episodes, in fact. Yeah.
And he actually directed an episode. And a week later, I got a text from Kumail Nanjiani being like, "Hey, what was Michael like as a director?" And I was like, "He's excellent. Why?" He's like, "No reason." And then, of course, he ends up directing The Big Sick.
Sure. That's fantastic. Yeah, you guys have had some great directors on that show over the last 5 seasons.
The first season, because I think the thing about Netflix is because they put out a whole season together, like it's interesting because I remember Howard Morris, who's the co-creator of Grace and Frankie with Marta Kaufman, also the creator of Friends. He said this phrase, which was, "We didn't have the luxury of a pilot," is the way that he put it. Oh. And I never heard it phrased that way because it took us a couple episodes in the first season to find the voice and the style and the rhythm of the show.
Yeah.
But that's what a pilot would be. You would figure that out kind of, like, oh, we made it. Now let's figure it out. Let's figure out how to adjust. And then you make the next episode.
Yeah.
But because Netflix doesn't have that ratings race, it doesn't have that ratings race, al Ghul.
Oh,
that's a reference.
That's a Batman reference. That's for you nerds out there.
That's right, nerds.
Yep, Jordan, I'm looking at you.
League of Shadows.
I know you're a big DC fan. Okay,
I could tell by that tattoo of a treble clef.
No, that's Aquaman.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yep.
Sorry, I summoned fish to the dish. Although I like the Shally Swish. Sorry, that's Bare Naked Ladies. That's just in my head for no reason. No reason. Wow. I got all the Bare Naked Ladies and Bone Thugs and Harmony in my head for no reason.
For good reasons.
Bone, bone, bone. Get out of here, Michael McDonald. Now he's singing Bone, Crossroads. Anyway, we were saying no benefit of the pilot, finding the voice, and they certainly did, though. I mean, Miguel Arteta came and directed an episode the first season.
Okay.
That was, of the first season, one of my favorite directors. As my experience was, this man kicked the show to the next level.
Wow.
He found things in the show that had not been found yet. And then there was this energy after he left of, we're making a show. Like, we officially know what we're doing.
Yeah.
He had never came back. I don't even know if they tried to get him back or whatever. I don't know. Obviously, I'm not privy to those conversations. But Miguel Arteta was so chill on set. Instead of action, he said ice cream most of the time. He slyly found out what everyone's favorite flavor of ice cream was, and on his last day, brought with him a pint of ice cream for every single person in the flavors that they had said.
My God.
And I was like, what? Focus and dedication, and just like, again, a guy who created an energy on set of, we're playing.
That's phenomenal.
We're fortunate to be in this industry, sort of a thing. And it kind of kicked us up to that next notch in the first season. And so, yeah, it's been a heck of a ride.
It certainly has.
We had Kira Sidgwick on the 5th season direct an episद. I was kind of starstruck. I'm a big Kira Sidgwick fan. I was like, dude, cool. This is cool right now.
Yeah.
The end.
Hardly. Real quick question. I know, Jordan, we're
hitting the wire.
We're getting pretty close.
Yes.
Is there something in here after us?
Is there something in here that's after us?
The next one, I know Yo is next door.
Okay.
Dave Holmes is at 1:30.
So we have some extra time, a little bit of wiggle room.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
A little wiggle?
Because I obviously want to talk about MST3K.
Well, we should,
and Fatherless.
And you're going to heavily
Do you want me
edit.
to give you like a marker? Like I can give you guys like an extra 15 minutes, maybe.
Yeah, extra 15. If we
Sure.
go till 1:45, that'd be great.
Yeah.
We can get it in.
Cool.
Oh,
yeah. I'm sorry. I talk.
Nope. You are making this so fucking easy on me. It's criminal.
It's
Edit
really
out
enjoyable.
everything.
Yes, you're doing great.
Everything.
Thank you.
I'll erase the whole episode.
Oh no, Jordan, why?
Okay.
All right. So no, hardly the end for you, but there's so many other things that I want to talk about.
Let's talk about
But
them.
chief among them, though, let's talk about the doc that you did for Fusion, Fatherless.
Yeah, Fusion is a network that is a subsidiary, I think, or under the umbrella of Univision.
Okay.
So I went out to the Univision building over on the west side. It's weird. It's like a huge building that's right off of the 405, I believe.
All right.
And you see it because it says Univision in giant letters. And I went in there and I had a meeting with the two men who are no longer there. But I would like to give a shout out to Brian Carmel and Alex Fumero for taking this meeting with me, where they were like, they're saying, the way they put it is that we're making 30 for 30s, but by comedians with some sort of social view, you know, kind of something that is about what's happening in society. And if you have any ideas for something like that or any questions that you want to ask, we'd love to hear it. And I go, yeah, I got a question. Where's my dad? And they were like, what? What are you talking about? I'm like, I grew up with no father.
Yeah.
My father left my mom before I was born. And so I'm curious about that dude.
Yeah.
And a lot of it has to do with becoming an adult.
Sure.
And starting to, again, go to therapy and find out like, oh, I have a lot of leftover feelings of this thing that I thought didn't matter to me.
Yeah.
And so, and a lot of it also has to do with being in a good relationship where it's like, all right, if I'm going to make this work, I got to face what doesn't work in me that continues to wreck, if you will, to kind of be the wrecking ball of intimacy of like, can't handle it, get out of here, I can't go further, you know, sort of a thing. So I was like, it's time to face some of the hardest things. And of course, I had to make myself bring it out in a pitch meeting. Am I going to do this on my own? Who knows? But if I say it to a network and they're like keeping me, you know, they're like pushing me to finish this, you know, they're keeping track of me. I'm under the gun for them. Like someone's counting on me to finish this thing is why I will finish it.
Yeah.
If it's for myself, I might just be like, it's too hard.
Right.
But if someone's like, no, we actually need it by this date, I'm like, all right, got to get it done.
Hard deadline with that budget. Yeah.
Exactly. So we ended up making this documentary that's called Fatherless. If you have Amazon Prime, it is on Amazon Prime.
Fantastic.
You can check it out. It was directed by a brilliant documentary director named Dawn Porter, who's made a bunch of things. She actually has a new Netflix documentary out called Bobby Kennedy for President. It's a 4-part documentary about Bobby Kennedy that she directed. She also has one called Trapped, which is about the war against reproductive rights. She also has one called Gideon's Army, which is about public defenders in the South. So she's like, I want to do something funny. How about this guy looking for his dad?
Lovely.
That's hilarious.
Hilarity.
Exactly. So we ended up getting together, and I'm so lucky to have had her.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how to make a documentary. But she is a professional documentary filmmaker, so I kind of learned the skill of how she interviews and kind of how she sits back and observes. But, you know, it was a TV documentary, so we had to do this in a very specific kind of structure.
Yeah.
And, it was kind of insane, and it's out there if you want to watch it. Long story short, met my biological father on camera, who is now a guy I know, who is now a person that I communicate with and actively stay in touch with. And we're still getting to know each other.
That's pretty crazy. That's kind of because in learning about you for this, I didn't know about that, and I was reading all about it. I was absolutely fascinated by that.
Well, I'm glad, and people like the doc. You know, it's entertaining because I'm trying to go into what this is psychologically in a sort of a way, but also kind of examine the whole trope of the fatherless black child. And kind of, I am that, you know what I mean? But at the same time, like, I don't fit the stereotypes that people assume you will be or the things that people think you will become if you have no father growing up.
Right.
So I kind of wanted to show my existence as a means of debunking a lot of these stereotypes.
And you thoroughly debunked, I would say. You've done quite well for yourself.
I mean, you know, there's a C-bunk and there's a D-bunk. So I think I made it to the D. But, you know, it's also, there's animation and stuff in it that I was really happy with, and it's kind of flows, and I think there's some good stuff in it.
That's great.
I would love to make a sequel, but we'll see.
Okay. Do you have other relatives you're still looking to meet?
Well, I have 4 new siblings. Oh. One of which is a little sister of mine who is 6 months younger than me.
Wow.
And if you know how pregnancy works, do the twist.
Hello.
Different moms, pregnant at the same time. That's part of the story of what happened back then, but everyone's young. My mom was 19, my father was 21.
Okay.
They're in a small town in New Mexico,
right,
so it's kind of like, I get it to an extent.
Right.
I have my own.
It wasn't a big kibbutz.
Yes. I have my own psychoanalytic ideas of what I think happened, but I would love to go deeper into what my mom was facing back then, and then also me meeting and becoming siblings, if you will, with these new people in my life.
Well, Fusion, get on it.
If they're still around, I have no idea.
They exist anymore. I think it's.
I'm not sure if they're still in network.
Well, here's something that is definitely. Oh, please tell me it's still on, as in they're making more.
What's that? What?
Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Never heard of it. Don't know what you're talking about.
I think you know a thing or two about
Just
it.
wrapped season 12.
Oh boy, yeah.
Yes. So there will be.
More.
Another season on Netflix.
Praise Jeebus!
I hope I'm not talking out of turn, but I'm pretty sure that everyone knows this.
I'd like to think they do, and if they didn't, they're very excited now. So after a much too long gap from being on television, back in 2017, I guess is when it aired. They brought Mystery Science Theater 3000 back to television. I mean, it had such a great loyal fan base, myself included.
Well, I mean, if there's one thing that I have learned is that I hate to say that these people are like the greatest fan base that ever has been, but they kind of are.
They kind of are.
Joel correctly assumed, that the fans would help fund this reboot.
Yeah.
And a return is what he calls it.
Sure.
Because a reboot would be him not being involved.
Right.
Just people being like, we're going to take this idea and do something different with it.
Yeah.
Which I think was the fear of the fans.
Yeah.
But because Joel has been at the helm, it is an extension of what has been, not a complete, redesign, if you will. And that came about in Jonah Ray literally, I think it's like him having podcasts with Joel and starting to kind of become friends and, confessing himself as a super fan of the show. And, and Joel being like, oh, yeah, cool, man. That's really cool. What's your favorite episode? Yeah, that's, by the way, the language of the fan base, like what your favorite episode is. Yep. Mike or Joel, Joel or Mike. But it's Jonah. So, and then Joel was like, who would be your crow and your servo?
Yeah.
Because this is something that Joel made with his buddies.
Yep.
And it has to have that feeling of, these are your buddies.
Yeah.
That's why the show works. Because these are your friends that are watching the show. They have a dynamic. So, Jonah named myself and Hampton Yunt, and we had this dynamic, and he thought I was a perfect servo because I'm theatrical as hell, and that Hampton is a perfect crow because he's a nihilist. He's a nasal-voiced nihilist. So, those are the archetypes. And that's how it kind of came together. It was just a meeting with Joel, and Joel wanted to kind of see what our vibe was, and he saw it. And so he kickstarted it with the help of a man named Ivan Asquith, who I'm not sure gets enough say. This dude's a Kickstarter genius, producerial genius. He helped out with the Super Troopers campaign. He helped out with the Veronica Mars campaign. This guy has
quite a track record.
He has been involved in all of the most successful Kickstarter campaigns, of which Mystery Science Theater 3000 is now the single most successful Kickstarter campaign in the history of Kickstarter.
Not surprising.
And so, yes, we beat Veronica. So
Don't
shut
beat
it.
Veronica.
Shut it, Veronica. Go back to Mars to get candy bars or whatever that rhyme is. And so we did a 14-episode season. This next season is going to be different. I don't want to say too much, but I will say that I think it is tighter.
Okay.
And it fits together in a way that is hats off to Joel and Elliot Kalin, who's our head writer. Kind of coming up with this new structure for it. I mean, it's not super different, but it just kind of fits together in a way that I think will make it work better on Netflix.
Yeah.
The end.
Why do you keep ending your speeches with the end?
I want to let you know that I'm done talking because I'll just gabbity gab.
No, there was no the end. So then, all right. So here's my two questions, or my one question. So the language, as you said, is Joel or Mike, which I won't make you answer, but I will make you answer what was your favorite episode?
My favorite episode of MST3K.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody has a couple, and that's always
it's hard to pick one.
Yeah, that's always kind of the language of like which couple of episodes.
Right.
My instinct is always to say Laser Blast, which is a Mike episode. It is not a Joel episode.
Okay.
So Laser Blast is a insane movie. and maybe that's what it is. It's that because it's the combination of what do you think about the movie?
Right.
And then the jokes on top of the movie. So it's like there's always that kind of that thing. So Laser Blast is like it's a movie about some aliens end up in some sort of battle. It's the first scene of the movie is like bad claymation aliens getting into a battle in the desert.
Yeah.
And then they leave this weird almost like arm cannon that is just there. Cut to the moodiest surfer bro ever, who's like a teenager, whose family is messed up somehow. He's just kind of moody, and his mom is traveling all the time. I think the implication is she's sleeping around so she can't look after her kids because she's got another man to go please.
Sure.
To marry rich, I don't know, but she's kind of absent. And then this kid who's very much a blonde surfer bro, shirt open the whole movie, tanned as hell, is somehow also bullied by everybody at high school. So he's got all this anger inside of him. And then one day he finds the arm cannon, which kind of takes over your mind.
Ooh.
And it kind of drives you crazy. Maybe it feeds on your anger. And then hilarity ensues.
Okay.
And Roddy McDowell is in it for no reason.
For every reason.
Exactly. So Laser Blast is one of my favorite episodes.
Okay.
And one of the Manos in the Hands of Fate is one of the greatest mentioned episodes. Probably the most mentioned episode of MST3K, which is a Joel episode as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I would say, and for me, it's Santa Claus Conquers the Martians, of course.
That was probably, as a kid, that was probably the one that I saw that got me into the show in the first place.
It got me in a big way because they pointed out a fucking spelling error in the opening titles.
Oh, my goodness.
Costume designer? Costumes?
Oh, my goodness. I forgot that.
Yeah, they misspelled costume designer in the
so
opening
funny.
titles
So
of Santa
funny.
Claus Conquers the Martians.
I just remember seeing a person in crude green paint going, "We need Santa Claus on Mars." And I'm like, what is happening? Yeah, that's a great episode too.
So good. There were so many, and Comedy Central back in the day. They were my life's blood.
Yeah.
And so it is, and I know that is the same for you. So it is, I can only imagine how special it must feel to be.
Well, it was intimidating at first because, we wanted to make everybody happy.
Yeah.
I think that this next season, Hampton and Jonah and I had notes for ourselves.
Okay.
Joel was not as, what's the word I'm looking for? Stressed out about it being good as we were. He was pretty confident about it.
Never seen Joel stressed in.
No, he's not a guy who operates in a stressed way.
No.
He's very relaxed is the only way I can say. But we feel more comfortable. Just
good.
In finding a groove, and now we've shown that we know what the show is.
Sure, and also when you were doing the first run,
Yeah.
it was not like they were airing a week after you shot them, and then you could make changes.
Yeah.
You did them all.
And I think it was binge proof. It was 14 episodes that first season, and most people haven't seen all of it, as far as I understand.
Yeah.
Which one of my favorite episodes gets lost. Yongari, check it out. I think
Okay.
it's episode 8. It's a Korean monster movie in which they repurposed the old Godzilla costume.
Oh my God.
I believe it is literally the exact same old Toho Godzilla costume that they put a horn on.
That's amazing. Mm-hmm. And I'll be watching it tonight.
Please do.
Dude, I cannot thank you enough for coming and talking with us today.
I'm glad I could.
Where can the people find you?
I'm around. Check me out on baronvaughn.com. I'm Barvon Black on Twitter and Instagram. I'll spell that out: BARVONBLAQ. I used to sing that on the Malton podcast because it's so hard to remember. If I just say it, maybe Barvon, blah, blah, blah. And just another thing I want to mention real quick. I have a show called The New Negroes, which is a all black showcase here in Los Angeles that we do around the country. So we're doing it in Montreal. We're doing it at DC in the District of Comedy Festival coming up. Then we're doing it at Just for Laughs. And we did a TV show version of it, which we are in the process of finishing up the first season of an 8-episode season. That's with my co-host Open Mike Eagle. And it's going to be a good time. So I'm proud of it, and I hope everybody will enjoy it when it sees the light of day.
Okay, or if you're in any of those cities that you mentioned,
come check it out.
Come check it out. Dude, thank you again. You are truly one of the funniest guys I know.
You are a special angel.
So
Michael, get out of here.
Come on, McDonald.
Had to get the last word in.
Jesus, that guy does not know when to call it a day. Thank you, truly, Baron. While I sit there for 1 second while I just wrap things up.
Oh, okay.
For the folks listening at home, you guys, the audience, I always mean to thank you, and I never do. And I think there's a reason. It's because you're not sending me enough pictures of your cute pets. And it's all I've ever asked. Just tweet at me pictures of your animals. And now here's Jennifer with the traffic. That was some of the best beatboxing I've ever heard. I want to thank Kevin Pollak himself, Chacho, for coming up with a podcast. Our head writer Jamie Foxx, Jason McIntyre, our producer, Corey Levin, our post producer, the Earwolf Studios, the Earwolf Evil Overlords, who are taking over the internet, and of course Jordan in the booth. Thank you so much, Jordan. You make every time here in the booth
Jordan,
that much more special.
I gotta thank you so much, Jordan. Oh, you let Michael get that one out.
I can't believe I think he's homeless.
Thank you, Michael, for that song.
There it is. So, for all of us, well, mostly just me, until next time, you may fuck off.